Welcome to Hanging with Hillbilly.
What's up, guys and gals, and welcome to Hanging with Hillbilly, as the little feller said there. This is gonna be a bit of an interesting video or video series here. I'm gonna do like a 3-part series to break this video up a bit. This video is called "The Best Evidence Proving Aliens Exist." We're gonna review it. We're gonna react to it. We're gonna talk about it in the comments of each of the 3 videos in this series and decide for ourselves whether or not we believe this is the best evidence proving aliens exist. We're going to talk about whether you believe aliens exist. I'll talk about my thoughts on whether or not aliens exist or what they might be or may not be in this video series. So I appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned, as again, this will be a 3-part series. So get ready and let's go ahead and get into it. Here is the first part.
What you're about to see is a former U.S. intelligence official in July 2023 testifying under oath regarding the U.S. government's interaction with unidentified extraterrestrial aircraft and their unusual pilots.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
No, your ears aren't deceiving you. United States Air Force officer and intelligence official David Grush, among other government officials, is genuinely claiming that we are not alone in the universe, and that, in fact, the U.S. government has been keeping the world in the dark about some truly crazy findings for years. Have extraterrestrials really been visiting and even spying on us for decades? Today, we'll be attempting to get to the bottom of that question. From mysterious snapshots of unexplainable flying objects to official government reports and a possible interview with an alien being, here's some of the best evidence we have proving aliens exist.
Yeah, so that's, a top official, intelligence official?
This first story has been corroborated by multiple highly reliable military personnel. And is probably the most striking proof of alien life, or technology, visiting Earth. And that's why I'm going to explain it first and in depth. We even have the footage to prove it. It goes like this. A naval strike group, led by the U.S. aircraft carrier the USS Nimitz, was conducting pre-deployment exercises off the northwest coast of Mexico in late 2004. On the 10th of November, the USS Princeton picked up unusual radar signals near San Clemente Island. These signals didn't appear as any known aircraft and would randomly appear in groups of 5 to 10 at a time. The senior operator of the radar system had almost 2 decades of experience working with these systems and was an expert with this scientific system at the time of the incident, so he was puzzled as to what was going on. Suspecting a malfunction, the recently upgraded Spy-1 radar was switched off and recalibrated. To everyone's surprise, this only led the radar tracks to become even stronger. They observed firsthand how the targets performed physics-defying feats. For example, the objects moved too fast to be birds, too slow to be conventional aircraft, and in some cases, descended from space to sea level in seconds. Imagine dropping in altitude from over 20,000 meters in mere seconds. Now that's turbulence. Then the objects would hang around for hours. These observations were witnessed for multiple days. Each time they occurred, the crew would view these tiny specks moving irregularly in the distance through their high-powered binoculars on board.
Okay, so if we're doing that, though, why, and maybe we'll get to this, but why are we not, first of all, why are we not, scurrying our fighter jets to go check it out, see what it is? Because to me, something that's doing that, and it's in our airspace or just off of our airspace, is worth at least investigating a little bit closer rather than using those pretty sweet binoculars they have there. Man, you could definitely I could watch a NASCAR race from way off with those and probably see the food in the driver's teeth But anyway, we'll continue forward to see if they actually do any closer investigating. But I can't believe they're just going to watch them for days on end, and they're hanging around for hours at a time. Okay.
Then, on the morning of November the 14th, something extraordinary unfolded. Strike Fighter Squadron 41 took off from the aircraft carrier on a regular training operation.
Okay, that's training
when
operation.
Suddenly, these mysterious radar tracks were spotted again. Lieutenant Douglas Kurth was instructed to investigate the unknown target approaching from the south. As he made his way to the coordinates, he saw a large disturbance in the water and claims to have seen something submerged just below the surface. He said it reminded him of a submarine or ship below the surface of the ocean. The strike group of ships did include the USS Louisville, a nuclear submarine, and it was in the vicinity, so it could have been the reason for the turbulence in the water. But what was witnessed later makes that idea seem implausible. You see, Kurth was joined by 2 other fighter jets, both containing 2 people each, the lead of which was piloted by Commander David Fravor. Fravor also claimed to have seen the disturbance on the ocean and described it as much larger than a submarine. As Kurth made his way back to the Nimitz, Commander Fravor and his wingman decided to take a closer look. Now, I'm going to show you the clip of Commander Fravor explaining this encounter in his own words in front of Congress, animating the story as he goes.
We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet, and the controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some whitewater off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in a large blue ocean. All 4 of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees, nose low, where the tic-tac, or we considered 270 degrees to where, and we went nose low to where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was about 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the whitewater was at, and it was gone also. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cat point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute."
Wow.
You can calculate the speed. We returned to Nimitz. We were taking off our gear. We were talking to one of my crews that was getting ready to launch. We mentioned it to them, and they went out and luckily got the video that you see, that 90-second video.
As Commander Fravor's group returned to the aircraft carrier, he briefed the next flight crew that was departing and told them to be on the lookout. The crew heading out was equipped with an advanced targeting, forward-looking infrared camera system, which was controlled by the weapons system operator seated behind the pilot, who was Chad Underwood. Can we just appreciate that name for a second? Chad Underwood, the frat boy to rule all frat boys. Anyway, minutes after departing, Underwood locked onto something on his radar a few tens of kilometers away. Underwood said,
"The part that drew our attention was how the object wasn't behaving within the normal laws of physics."
Now, let's watch the video which supposedly recorded the craft. As you can see, the black and white version of the video is in infrared, and Underwood changes to visible light, revealing the blurry oval object in the distance. He then changes back to infrared and toggles his zoom numerous times. Suddenly, the UFO disappears off the side of the screen. Unfortunately, the target was too far away to be seen with the naked eye, and Underwood nor his pilot made visual contact. Following their encounter, the Naval Strike Group continued detecting anomalous radar tracks for at least 2 more days. Skeptics have tried to explain the footage as being an airplane of some sort, but airplanes can't zip around the sky as if gravity is non-existent. And whilst the witness accounts are so extraordinary that you may assume they're made up, Consider that dozens of high-ranking and highly reliable military personnel have corroborated the stories. Commander Fravor, along with other witnesses, also claimed they saw an extended version of the video that was in a higher resolution, but it has never been released. All footage from the events were supposedly erased the evening of the day they were recorded. Numerous witnesses on both ships in the strike group also claim they saw two men arrive by helicopter who collected the relevant data before wiping all the tapes and hard drives clean. The witnesses said they never saw anything like it before. Potentially, this could be evidence of a cover-up of some kind. Maybe the government is aware of the existence of alien life or...
Well, yeah, so maybe they are aware of the existence of alien life. Or maybe this is some type of government, some type of new technology that we're working on, and we don't need that to be uncovered quite yet. You know, science, we haven't released that not only to the public, but to the military, to these soldiers or these, you know, these pilots that are out there. Therefore, they're not allowed to actually have access to that classified information. We don't know yet, but let's continue on with the video and see where they take us.
Technology, but they don't want all of us aware of them for one reason or another. Maybe the government assumes there would be a mass hysteria they would like to avoid, or maybe they're just keeping it a secret so our adversaries are kept in the dark. It could also be the case that these sightings are just of top-secret military technology, like drones or aircraft, that the government is taking active steps towards keeping under covers. We know they are developing incredible tech, but still, surely gravity-defying Tic Tacs are a step too far.
But are they?
We can only wonder what the flight crews saw that day, but my mind does wonder.
Okay, so thinking back to that, is the technology ahead of what? Let's be honest. We have developed so much over the last, let's see, this is 2024 and a half, and so much technology has been, think about what technology has done since the 1990s. So the last 30 years alone. Oh, goodness. I just had a whole age thing happen just now, but yeah, since the 1990s, think about how far we've come with technology, and knowing that this stuff has been worked on way, okay, both militarily and to civilians, how technology has moved forward. Think about that technology was likely being worked on since the 70s, like cell phone technology, for example, we know has been worked on since then. You take cable television, satellite television, you take cell phones, the internet, for example, how much AI has developed over the past 5 years. It's very feasible that we are working on things that, I mean, then if you'd have said in the 1980s that we would be able to talk to a loved one and see their face while we're doing it, right? That, I mean, that was kind of a thing. The Jetsons did it on the cartoon there. Many times there were all these different examples that you could come up with of video communication that we thought was just a pipe dream, right? And it turns out we're doing that today, folks. We are doing that now. So these things that we would consider to be unfathomable or impossible or defying the logic of physics today, it was the same thing then in the 70s and 80s when they were coming up with these concepts and bringing them to life. So it to say we can't do that or we're not working on something like that is a bit of a stretch to me. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. But that's kind of my take on it. But we're going to keep on moving on with this video so we can get through part 1, because this is going to be a long one altogether. But let's go.
No, is that Commander Fravor estimated the craft to be roughly 12 to 15 meters long and looked like a Tic Tac. Were the Tic Tacs opaque, looking somewhat like the typical UFOs we're used to? Or did the Tic Tacs have cockpits with alien pilots controlling the craft, only zooming off after their operation was foiled? Unfortunately, we will never know. But what we do know is that this wasn't an isolated incident, as I will explain later. The Secrets of Area 51.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ah, Area 51.
Oh, yes.
The center of practically all alien conspiracies. With near constant rumors of extraterrestrial research taking place at this secret military development and testing base, you have to wonder if there's any truth to them all.
Right?
If you ask Bob Lazar, then the answer is a big fat yes. See, Bob claimed to have been hired to work at Area 51 in the late 80s for an astonishing reason: to reverse engineer alien spacecraft. Lazar claimed all the way back in 1997 that the captured craft he was reverse engineering ran on an antimatter reactor, which was powered by a stable form of element 115, which wouldn't be officially created by our Earth scientists until 2003, and we can still barely stabilize it. Lazar said the reactor he studied was topped by a sphere the size of a basketball, which emitted a force field capable of repulsing human flesh. He explained that the craft was split into two main levels. The reactor was positioned at the center of the upper level, with an antenna extending to the top, surrounded by 3 gravity amplifiers. He said these functioned as a sort of guide for the gravity wave that forms into a heart shape around the entire craft, narrowing at the bottom. These connected to gravity emitters on the lower level, which can rotate 180 degrees to output an anti-gravity wave, and that the craft would then travel belly first into this distortion field. Basically, according to Bob, flying saucers fly sideways rather than upright, with opposable engines allowing the craft to move in any direction. Not only that, Bob also claimed he read briefing documents describing the historical involvement of Earth for the past 10,000 years with extraterrestrial beings, described as the typical gray aliens that were about child size, of which he had seen cadavers of similar size. To this day, all organizations where Bob claims he worked or studied vehemently denies he was ever there. Yet George Knapp, an American journalist who investigated Bob's claims, said that Bob displayed a knowledge of the facility that would only be acquired by someone who'd been there. Of course, some claim it's all part of a cover-up. Many even suggest he is a somewhat inexperienced techie, yet the guy built a jet car for fun and has been featured in multiple newspapers for his creations. So he's clearly a distinguished engineer. Bob even claimed they used a specific biometric hand scanner at the base, which measured the length of bones in your hand to authorize access to the base.
Oh, Bob.
That the government denied this at first, but decades later, the Department of Defense admitted they did in fact use it at Area 51 in the 80s for the stealth fighter program.
Interesting.
And Bob confirmed the one they declassified matched what he had used. At any time, either of those organizations could have simply said that, yes, Bob Lazar worked for them, and they deeply regret to hear of his degenerate mental state or something like that.
Okay, so poor Bob. And what I mean by that is if Bob is telling the truth, right? If Bob was trying to leak some information that the government otherwise, and we know how the United States government and other governments around the world work, right? It's all about sheltering the people from what they don't believe we can handle. That was the problem way back when, if there was actual things that happened at Area 51 or surrounding Area 51. You can't really, if there were aliens, at some point they're going to believe that the American people aren't strong enough or have the mental capacity to be able to handle that type of information without freaking out and there being mass hysteria, causing craziness throughout all the major cities of the United States. And I can kind of get where they're coming from. But now we're in a day and age to where I believe that all of that has changed quite a bit. You know, we've grown so much as a people and as a country. We've seen things now that people may have not have been able to handle in the 50s, 60s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, because it was just too far outside of the realm of possibility. But as I was saying earlier, now I don't believe that there's anything outside of the realm of possibility as far as technology advances go. Look at what we're able to do. I mean, you can basically tell a program to write you an essay, and it's going to go out and gather all this great information from this World Wide Web, and it's going to write you this essay that, you know, many people are using to get their college degrees today, which is kind of going to dumb down society. So it's really going to backfire as far as progressing in technology. But anyway, nonetheless, we're going to move on with the video. But yeah, poor Bob. If he's being honest about what was said, I mean, they really made him out to be a complete and utter dumbass, and that's unfortunate.
But no, they still insist they don't know who he is despite all that. Why? It's not to say we know he is telling the complete truth, but there's too many shadowy coincidences here for anyone to be comfortably skeptic.
Right.
So are there any truth to Bob's claims? Well, he's maintained the same story for over 30 years at this point, and passed lie detector tests on the subject.
No kidding. All right.
So maybe? It's worth noting that the guy has been convicted several times of crimes since his testimony, which his critics have used to discredit his story. But who knows? Was Bob telling the truth? Well, some of the sightings coming up might make you think he's telling the truth. Remember I told you that Tic Tac video wasn't an isolated incident? A similar encounter was filmed on the southeastern coast of America in early 2015. Those who recorded it have yet to come forward, but some crewmates and fellow pilots have provided some of the backstory, and it goes like this. Roughly 10 years after the initial Tic Tac sightings in the summer of 2004, a naval strike group, led by the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt, led training exercises somewhere off the coast of Virginia.
Okay.
The encounter was strikingly similar to the previous one explained. Anomalous radar tracks were spotted and initially dismissed. Gravity-defying hypersonic objects were being detected defying the laws of physics. After double-checking all their equipment, they were certain what they were seeing had to be real. Early interceptions were initially unsuccessful, until one day, two jets no more than a few tens of meters apart narrowly avoided a mid-air collision when something flew right in between them. Although the pilots themselves haven't come forward, fellow F-18 pilot Lieutenant Ryan Graves spoke to one of the pilots who landed and said the experience had visually spooked him. Here's what he had to say about the encounter at the UAP congressional hearing.
During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
This time, the craft was described as a cube encased by a translucent sphere. Obviously, both pilots must have been incredibly startled, so it's hard to figure out exactly what they saw in such a short space of time. But I've created a few images of the craft for entertainment purposes, and I've added a little extra aliens for fun. They didn't mention seeing them, but I like to think they were there. Anyway, Lieutenant Ryan Graves said this wasn't an isolated incident, and that similar things had been seen by dozens of pilots for several months, and that the object spotted could remain airborne for up to 12 hours at a time. A few months later, in 2015, when the USS Theodore Roosevelt had made its way over by the coast of Florida, during a separate incident, pilots captured another clip that shocked everyone involved.
Dude, there's a going on, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. The whole thing, dude. That's not our LNS, though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's a thing, it's rotating.
The interesting thing about this clip is that the craft captured seemed to rotate and fly in a fashion somewhat similar to that described by Bob Lazar on its side. The craft even has a heart-like shape, which resembles how Lazar claimed the crafts he reverse-engineered warped gravity around them. However, some debunkers claim the rotation seen in the video is an optical illusion caused by the derotation mechanism of the camera.
Wait,
That
but
said, the two pilots themselves failed to recognize it as an image rotation.
so if that's the case, that the rotation of the camera warped shape of what it's looking at, nothing else in this footage appears to be warped. So why is the object in which it's filming? And I don't know enough about it to be able to say for sure, but why is that the case?
Surely, if anyone could spot image rotation, they would be the ones who would know what it looks like. Both pilots believe the craft actually rotated. Even Jeremy Corbell, an electro-optical engineer and expert in the ATF LIRE camera system, explained it's not an optical illusion. Besides, if it were an optical illusion, that doesn't explain what the pilots remarked about in the following clip.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
It seems nothing yet has explained how a whole fleet could travel cross-wind at that speed. With all that said, it's interesting to hear about the man responsible for making these videos public, Luis Elizondo. He was the head of a secret government-funded effort to investigate UFO sightings known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. In late 2017, he became so disillusioned with the government's efforts that he decided to resign. He claimed that certain individuals within the government are staunchly opposed to UFO research, and that the government is unconcerned about something that could affect national security. Indeed, many military personnel claim these sightings are common but underreported, as individuals fear for their career should they speak out and risk looking like a tinfoil hat wearer at the expense of another promotion. Certainly, there is a stigma around the UFO topic, which is precisely the reason the government now uses UAP instead of UFO to avoid the unwanted association with aliens, spaceships, and probing human backsides. Lieutenant Ryan Graves summarizes perfectly the sentiment around UFO sightings among the U.S. government during his speech to Congress.
My name is Ryan Fobbs Graves, and I'm a former F-18 pilot with a decade of service in the U.S. Navy, including 2 deployments in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Inherent Resolve. I have experienced advanced UAP firsthand, and I'm here to voice the concerns of more than 30 commercial aircrew and military veterans who have confided their similar encounters with me. Today, I would like to highlight 3 critical issues that demand our action. As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. The stigma attached to UAP is real and powerful and challenges national security. It silences commercial pilots who fear professional repercussions, discourages witnesses, and is only compounded by recent government claims questioning the credibility of eyewitness testimony. Parts of our government are aware of more about UAP than they let on, but excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden. Since 2021, all UAP videos are classified as secret or above. This level of secrecy not only impedes our understanding, but fuels speculation and mistrust.
In fact, in 2021, the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a preliminary report on UAPs, and the official findings will chill you to the core.
So with that being said, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Is it do you believe that there's possibly UFOs exist? Is it a possibility that UFOs are a real thing, that aliens are a real thing, and that our government is still continuing to kind of sugarcoat it and hide the information from the American people or from the world in reality? So is it a possibility that the U.S. government is hiding this information from the world in order to keep us from panicking, or maybe to kind of I don't know. It bothers me that people have to worry about losing their job by coming forward with information regarding UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them today. But it seems to me that if there is something like this that exists in our world, which I'll be honest with you, I've become more of a believer now that I'm a little bit older than I did when I was younger. Uh, I believe that there are things that we don't know about. Now, do I know what those are? I don't know. I have a couple of ideas and things that hypothesis on what uh may be alien like, or maybe it's humans, and maybe that we as the human race have progressed so far, so over time, that we were able to, and I say were as if it's past tense, but really I'm talking about the future. In the future, we're able to create maybe time travel type devices, and maybe what we consider to be UFOs today is nothing more than humans time traveling back here to give us information about technology that helps us progress even faster to prevent a problem later in life. If that didn't confuse you, be sure to tune in here to Hanging with Hillbilly for parts 2 and 3 of this video and this reaction to this video, the best evidence proving that aliens exist, as we're going to continue with part 2 and 3 here later on. But for now, I leave you with this. Be sure and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed yourself. It's the best thing you can do today for free. Subscribe to the channel. Be sure to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss upcoming videos as they come out, as we are going to have part 2 and part 3 of finishing up this reaction to the best evidence proving aliens exist right here on Hanging with Hillbilly. I thank you for watching today, and we'll see you on the next one.